At a luxury party, my wife's mother handed me a name badge. It read, Housekeeper. My wife laughed and said, "Food's for family." There was no chair for me at the table. I removed my wedding ring and set it down in front of 370 guests. They thought they'd put me in my place. They had no idea what I was about to do. The silence that followed was deafening. Crystal glasses stopped clinking. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the hired string quartet seemed to pause their Mozart. I'm Liam Foster, by the way. 38 years old, ex-engineer turned contractor. I build things. I fix things. And apparently, according to my wife Celeste and her mother Monica, I clean things. "Liam, what are you doing?" Celeste hissed through her perfect smile, the one she'd practiced in the mirror for Instagram photos. Her voice carried that particular tone she used when I embarrassed her in public, which, according to her, was every time I opened my mouth around her friends. I looked around the ballroom of Monica's lakeside mansion. Chandeliers that cost more than most people's cars cast warm light over tables laden with catered delicacies. The guest list read like a who's who of our affluent suburb: tech executives, startup founders, social media influencers, and old money families who'd been looking down on people like me for generations. "I'm leaving," I said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Wouldn't want to track dirt on the marble floors. Monica Blackwood, my mother-in-law, stood frozen with her mouth slightly open. At 62, she was still beautiful in that cold, preserved way that money could buy. Her silver hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon, and her black Chanel dress probably cost more than I made in a month. "Liam, you're being dramatic," she said, recovering her composure. "It was just a little joke. Surely you can take a joke." "Oh, I can take a joke," I replied, picking up my wedding ring and sliding it into my pocket. "I've been taking jokes for 3 years. The question is, can you?" I turned to leave, but Celeste grabbed my arm. Her manicured nails dug into my jacket sleeve. "Don't you dare walk out on me," she whispered fiercely. "Do you know how this looks?" "Yeah," I said, looking directly into her eyes. "It looks like I finally woke up." The crowd was openly staring now. Phones were discreetly coming out. This would be all over social media within the hour. Celeste's perfect image, the thing she cared about more than anything else in the world, was about to take a serious hit. As I walked toward the exit, I heard the whispers starting. Good. Let them talk. Let them wonder what the quiet contractor husband was really thinking all these years. Outside in the circular driveway, I breathed the cool evening air. My truck looked pathetically out of place among the Teslas and BMWs. But it was honest. It didn't pretend to be something it wasn't. That was quite a show in there. I turned to see Tommy Chen, my childhood friend who was working security for the event. At 6'3" with arms like tree trunks, Tommy had been bouncing at local bars for 15 years. He was one of the few people from my old life that Celeste hadn't managed to drive away. "Just getting started," I said. "Want to talk about it?" I looked back at the mansion, where I could see Celeste through the windows, frantically trying to do damage control. She was probably telling everyone I'd been under stress lately, maybe drinking too much. Anything to preserve her precious reputation. "Tommy, how long have you known me?" "Since we were 8, why? In all that time, have you ever known me to back down from a fight?" Tommy grinned. "Never, even when you should have. Then you know this isn't over." 3 days later, I was sitting in my workshop behind the house, pretending to work on a cabinet while actually planning my next move. The workshop was my sanctuary, the one place Celeste never bothered to enter because it was too dirty for her designer clothes. My phone buzzed. A text from Celeste. "We need to talk when I get home. This behavior needs to stop." I almost laughed. She thought she could control the narrative, make me the villain in her story. She had no idea what I'd been discovering about her secret life. The first clue had come 2 weeks ago, completely by accident. I'd been replacing the garbage disposal when I found a receipt tucked behind the sink cabinet. Dinner for 2 at Romano's, the expensive Italian place downtown. The date was a Tuesday night when Celeste had claimed to be working late. The bill was for 2 entrees, 2 expensive bottles of wine, and dessert. Celeste hated dessert. That receipt led me to start paying attention, really paying attention. Celeste worked as head of HR at Nexus Technologies, a startup that developed software for financial firms. She made good money, better than mine, which she reminded me of regularly. Her boss was Kellen Pierce, a smooth-talking CTO who drove a silver Porsche and wore $1,000 suits. I'd met Kellen a few times at company parties. He was the type of guy who called everyone buddy and had a firm handshake that lasted too long. Celeste always lit up when he was around, laughing too loudly at his mediocre jokes and finding excuses to touch his arm when she talked. My phone rang. It was my sister Renee, calling from her law office in the city. "I heard about the party," she said without preamble. "Mrs. Green called me." Mrs. Green was our 70-year-old neighbor who knew everything that happened within a 3-block radius. She was also Renee's former client and had become something of a surrogate grandmother to both of us after our parents died. "News travels fast," I said. "Liam, what's really going on? This isn't like you to make a scene." I set down my sandpaper and leaned against the workbench. "Renee, if you suspected your spouse was cheating, how would you prove it?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Oh, crap. Really? I think so, but I need to be sure. Liam, listen to me carefully. If you're going down this road, you need to be smart about it. Don't do anything stupid. Don't break any laws. And whatever you find, document everything. I'm not stupid. No, but you're angry, and angry people make mistakes." After I hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my workshop, thinking. Celeste would be home soon from her client dinner that I was 90% sure was actually a date with Kellen. She'd come in smelling like expensive cologne and claiming to be exhausted. She'd go straight to the shower, washing away the evidence of wherever she'd really been. But tonight, I'd be ready. I heard her car in the driveway at 10:47 p.m. Through the workshop window, I watched her get out of her BMW, check her phone, and smooth down her hair. She looked guilty. Or maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see. I gave her 10 minutes to get settled, then went into the house, through the back door. "Hey!" I called out. "How was the dinner?" "Exhausting," came her voice from upstairs. "The client was impossible. We barely got anything done." I walked to the bottom of the stairs. "Which client was it again?" A pause. "Morrison Industries, the insurance company." Interesting. I happen to know that Morrison Industries was based in Chicago, and all their meetings were conducted via video conference. Celeste had told me this herself 6 months ago when she was complaining about never getting to travel for work. "That's too bad," I said. "Maybe next time will go better." "Maybe," she said. I heard the shower start running. While she was washing off her lies, I went to her purse, which she'd left on the kitchen counter. Inside, I found another receipt, this one from the Meridian Hotel downtown. 2 drinks at the bar, ordered at 8:30 p.m., the same time she was supposedly struggling through a difficult client dinner. I photographed the receipt with my phone and put it back exactly where I'd found it. Then I went to bed, lying awake in the dark, while Celeste slept peacefully beside me, probably dreaming about her exciting double life. The next morning, I called in sick to the construction site, where I was working, and drove to the Meridian Hotel instead. I'd worked on the renovation of their bar 2 years ago and still knew some of the staff. "Liam!" Maria, the day shift bartender, smiled when she saw me. "What brings you here?" "Hey, Maria, I'm trying to track down my wife. She was here last night for a business meeting, but she left her earrings somewhere. Tall blonde, probably with a guy in an expensive suit." Maria's expression shifted slightly. "Oh, yeah, I remember her. They seemed close for business associates." My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice casual. "Close how?" "Well, they were holding hands, and when they left, they went to the elevator together, not the parking garage." So there it was, confirmation. "Thanks, Maria. I'll let her know to call if the earrings turn up." I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. Part of me had hoped I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation for all the suspicious behavior. But there wasn't. My wife was cheating on me with her boss. The question now was, what was I going to do about it? I spent the next week gathering evidence like a man possessed. Every receipt, every late night, every suspicious phone call. I documented everything. I felt like a detective in one of those crime shows Celeste used to watch before she got too busy with her career advancement. The pattern was clear once I started looking for it. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Celeste had late meetings, always with different clients, always running long, always leaving her exhausted and needing a shower the moment she got home. On Wednesday, I followed her. I felt ridiculous sitting in my truck across the street from her office building, wearing sunglasses like some kind of amateur private investigator. But at 6:30 p.m., when most of the Nexus Technologies employees were heading to the parking garage, Celeste and Kellen walked out together. They didn't take her car or his Porsche. Instead, they got into an Uber. I followed at a distance, feeling my heart pound as we drove through downtown toward the expensive part of town. The Uber stopped at Kellen's condominium building, a gleaming 30-story tower with a doorman and valet parking. Celeste didn't hesitate as she followed Kellen inside. I parked across the street and waited, and waited. 2 hours later, they emerged. Celeste's hair slightly messed up, Kellen's tie loosened. They kissed goodbye right there on the sidewalk, not caring who might see them. I took pictures of everything. When Celeste got home at 10:15 p.m., I was waiting in the living room, reading a book. "How was the Morrison Industries call?" I asked casually. "Terrible," she said, not even looking at me. "I think we're going to lose the account. I need a shower." As she headed upstairs, I called out, "Hey, Celeste." She turned back, impatient. "What?" "Morrison Industries called here about an hour ago. They wanted to reschedule tomorrow's meeting because their CEO is in the hospital." I watched her face carefully. For just a split second, I saw panic flash across her features. Then she recovered. "Oh, that must be why the call went so badly tonight." He was probably distracted. Nice try, I thought. But we both knew Morrison Industries wasn't the client she'd been servicing tonight. "I'm sure that was it," I said. The next day, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to confront Kellen directly. I knew his schedule because Celeste had mentioned it enough times. He had lunch every Friday at Russo's, the trendy bistro near his office. He always sat at the same table by the window, always ordered the same salmon salad, and always spent at least an hour there, schmoozing with potential clients. At 12:30 p.m., I walked into Russo's wearing my best jeans and a clean button-down shirt. I wasn't trying to fit in with the suit and tie crowd, but I didn't want to look like I just rolled off a construction site either. Kellen was exactly where I expected him to be, scrolling through his phone while picking at his salad. He looked up when I approached his table, and I saw recognition dawn in his eyes, followed quickly by something that might have been fear. "Liam," he said, forcing a smile. "What a surprise. What brings you downtown?" "You?" I said, pulling out the chair across from him and sitting down uninvited. "We need to talk." "About what?" But his voice was an octave higher than usual. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken outside his building. Kellen's face went pale. "About my wife," I said quietly. "About the lies. About how you're going to fix this." Kellen looked around nervously, probably hoping someone would rescue him from this conversation. But the lunch crowd was absorbed in their own business deals and office gossip. "Liam, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I interrupted. "I have pictures, I have receipts, I have hotel records. What I don't have is patience for BS. He set down his fork with shaking hands. "What do you want?" "I want you to end it. Today. Right now. You're going to call Celeste and tell her it's over. You're going to transfer her to a different department or find her a job at another company. And you're going to stay the heck away from my family. And if I don't," I leaned forward, "then I send these photos to your wife, your business partners, and the board of directors at Nexus Technologies. I also send them to the local newspaper's business section. How do you think that's going to play out for your career?" Kellen's jaw tightened. For a moment, I saw a flash of the arrogance that probably made him think he could take whatever he wanted, including other men's wives. "You can't threaten me," he said. "I'm not threatening you," I replied calmly. "I'm giving you a choice. End it quietly and walk away, or have your life blown up publicly. Either way, you're done with Celeste." I stood up and dropped a $20 bill on the table. "You've got until tonight to make the call. After that, all bets are off." As I walked away, I heard him call after me, "This isn't over, Liam." I turned back and smiled. "You're right, it's just getting started." That evening, Celeste came home early for the first time in weeks. She walked through the door at 5:45 p.m., her face flushed and her eyes bright with anger. "We need to talk," she announced, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter with more force than necessary. "Sure," I said, not looking up from the dinner I was preparing. "How was work?" "Don't." Her voice was sharp. "Don't pretend you don't know." I turned to face her, noting the way her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. "Know what? Kellen told me about your little visit today. How dare you embarrass me like that?" I almost laughed. "I embarrassed you? That's rich, Celeste. Tell me exactly which part was embarrassing. The part where I caught you cheating, or the part where your boyfriend turned out to be a coward?" Her face went white, then red. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Hotel receipts say otherwise. Photos say otherwise. The doorman at Kellen's building who remembers you says otherwise." For a moment, she looked like she might try to keep denying it, Then something shifted in her expression, and I saw the real Celeste emerge. The cold, calculating woman who'd been hiding behind the loving wife facade. Fine, she said. Yes, I'm seeing Kellen. Yes, we're in love. And yes, I want a divorce. There it was. After 3 years of marriage, she was finally being honest with me. How long? I asked. Does it matter? Humor me, she shrugged. 8 months. 8 months. That meant it had started right around the time I'd been laid off from my engineering job and was struggling to get the contracting business off the ground. When I'd needed her support the most, she'd been shopping for my replacement. Why didn't you just leave? I asked. Why the charade? Because I needed time to figure things out. Kellen was married when we started seeing each other. We had to be careful. Was married? He filed for divorce last month. He's free now. She said it like she was announcing good news. And you want to be free too. I nodded slowly. Okay, then let's talk about terms. She blinked, clearly not expecting me to be so reasonable. Terms? The house, the cars, the savings accounts. How do you want to split things up? I haven't really thought about the details yet. Well, you should probably start. Because I'm not going to make this easy for you. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means that if you want out, you can get out. But you don't get to rewrite history. You don't get to play the victim. And you sure as heck don't get to take me for everything I'm worth. Liam, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm not going to contest the divorce. I'm not going to try to win you back or beg you to stay. But I'm also not going to pretend this is some mutual decision or no-fault situation. You cheated. You lied. You made a fool of me in front of our friends and family. There are consequences for that. She crossed her arms. Like what? Like everyone knowing the truth about why our marriage ended. Like your precious reputation taking a hit. Like Kellen's ex-wife finding out that her husband left her for a woman who was already married. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared at each other across the kitchen, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever, now circling like fighters looking for an opening. I'm staying at Kellen's tonight, she said finally. Good. That'll save me the trouble of asking you to leave. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. You know, Liam, this is exactly why I fell out of love with you. You're small, you're petty. You can't see the big picture. And what's the big picture, Celeste? That people grow apart, that sometimes love isn't enough, that holding on to something that's already dead just makes everyone miserable. You're right, I said. Love isn't enough. It also requires honesty, loyalty, and respect, things you apparently never learned. After she left, I sat in my empty house and felt relieved. The pretending was over. The wondering was over. Now I could focus on what came next. I picked up my phone and called Tommy. I need a favor, I said when he answered. Name it. I need you to help me move some furniture this weekend. Celeste is moving out, and I want to make sure she only takes what's actually hers. Absolutely. You doing okay, man? I'm better than I've been in months. And surprisingly, that was true. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Apparently, word of Celeste's departure had spread through our social circle faster than a computer virus. Most of the messages fell into 3 categories: people offering sympathy, people asking for gossip, and people taking sides. What surprised me was how many of our mutual friends immediately assumed I was the problem. Heard about you and Celeste, read a text from Brad Morrison, who'd been my best man. Man, what did you do? What did I do? I worked 60 hours a week to keep us afloat while she was playing house with her boss. But apparently, in the court of public opinion, the man was always guilty until proven innocent. I was deleting the messages when my phone rang. Mrs. Green. Liam, dear, are you all right? I saw Celeste leaving with suitcases last night. I'm fine, Mrs. Green. We're getting divorced. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, but honestly, I'm not surprised. That got my attention. You're not? Well, I didn't want to say anything while you were married, but that girl has been having visitors while you were at work. I sat up straighter. What kind of visitors? A man in a fancy car, silver sports car. He'd parked 2 streets over and walked to your house. Usually stayed about an hour. So Kellen had been coming to my house. In my bed, probably. The violation felt even worse than the cheating. How long has this been going on? Oh, months now. I almost said something several times, but Harold always said it wasn't our business. Harold was Mrs. Green's late husband. She still talked about him in the present tense sometimes. Mrs. Green, would you be willing to write down what you saw? Dates, times, anything you remember? Of course, dear. Are you going to take that hussy for everything she's worth? Despite everything, I smiled. I'm going to try. After Mrs. Green hung up, I called Renee. I need a lawyer, I said. Well, you've got one. When do you want to meet? Today. 2 hours later, I was sitting in Renee's downtown office, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture that somehow managed to look comfortable rather than intimidating. Tell me everything, Renee said, pulling out a legal pad. I told her about the receipts, the photos, the hotel visits, Kellen's condo, Mrs. Green's observations. I told her about the confrontation with Kellen and Celeste's admission. I told her about the messages from friends who'd already decided I was the villain. Renee took notes throughout, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Okay, here's the good news. You've got solid evidence of adultery, which gives us leverage in the divorce proceedings. The bad news is that this is a no-fault divorce state, so her cheating doesn't automatically entitle you to more assets. So what's the point of having evidence? Reputation, public opinion, leverage in negotiations. If Celeste wants to avoid a messy public trial, she might be more willing to settle fairly. And if she doesn't care about public opinion, then we go to war. I like the sound of that. There's something else, Renee continued. I did some research on Kellen Pierce. He's got his own problems. She slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printouts of news articles and financial documents. Nexus Technologies is in trouble. They've been losing money fast for 6 months, and there are rumors of layoffs coming. Kellen's been selling his stock options and liquidating assets. Either he knows something the public doesn't, or he's planning to jump ship. What does that have to do with Celeste? If Nexus goes under, she's out of a job. And if Kellen's been insider trading, he could be facing criminal charges. Your wife might have hitched her wagon to a sinking ship. I studied the documents, financial reports, SEC filings, industry analysis. It was all there in black and white. Nexus Technologies was circling the drain. How long do they have? 3 months, maybe 6 if they get an influx of capital. But the smart money is already pulling out. I thought about Celeste, so proud of her executive position and her important boyfriend. She thought she was trading up, but she might actually be trading into disaster. Renee, I want you to do something for me. What? File the divorce papers today. I want to beat her to the courthouse. Liam, are you sure? Once we file, there's no going back. I'm sure, and I want to ask for everything. The house, the cars, alimony, the works. That's pretty aggressive. Any particular reason? I smiled. Because when Celeste finds out Kellen's company is failing and her job is disappearing, she's going to come crawling back. And when she does, I want her to know exactly where she stands. You really think she'll try to reconcile? I think Celeste is practical above all else. When her fairy tale turns into a nightmare, she'll want her safety net back. But the net won't be there anymore. Renee grinned. I like the way you think. Let's destroy her. As I left Renee's office, I felt lighter than I had in months. For the first time since this whole mess started, I was taking action instead of just reacting. I was setting the terms instead of accepting them. Celeste thought she was so smart, so sophisticated, so much better than her blue-collar husband. She was about to learn that intelligence comes in many forms, and some of the most dangerous people are the ones who know how to build things and how to tear them down. 3 weeks later, everything came crashing down exactly as I'd predicted. I was installing new cabinets in a client's kitchen when Tommy called with news. Turn on channel 7, he said. You're going to want to see this. I asked my client if I could use their TV. The noon news was running a story about Nexus Technologies filing for bankruptcy. The reporter stood outside the company's downtown offices while employees carried boxes to their cars. The sudden collapse has shocked the local tech community, the reporter was saying. CEO Marcus Webb announced this morning that the company ran out of operating capital and would be shutting down immediately. All 247 employees have been terminated effective today. I watched the footage of devastated workers, wondering if Celeste was among them. I got my answer an hour later when she called me, for the first time since moving out. Liam, I need to talk to you. About what? About us. About the divorce. I think we made a mistake. We? I made a mistake. I got caught up in something that wasn't real. But what we have is real. I almost laughed. What we have, Celeste, is a legal separation and divorce papers filed with the court. That's what's real. You filed already? Her voice was small, shocked. 3 weeks ago. You should be getting served any day now. Silence on the other end, then, "Can we meet somewhere? Please, I just want to talk." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory where she couldn't make a scene. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer clothes. She looked tired, older somehow, like the last month had aged her years. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "You've got 15 minutes. Liam, I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems." "Our problems?" I interrupted. "Celeste, you cheated on me for 8 months. You lied to my face every day. You humiliated me in front of our friends and family. Those aren't problems we can work through. Those are choices you made." "I know, but where's Kellen?" She looked down at her coffee cup. "Gone." "Gone where?" "I don't know. When the company collapsed, he just disappeared. He's not answering my calls. He cleared out his apartment. I think he might have left the state." So the great love affair was over. Prince Charming had turned out to be a coward who ran at the first sign of trouble. "I'm sorry," I said and meant it. "That must be hard." She looked up hopefully. "Does that mean—" "It means I'm sorry you got your heart broken. It doesn't mean I want you back." "But the house—" "What about it? I need somewhere to stay, just temporarily until I find another job. You can stay with your mother. She's not speaking to me." That was news. "Why not?" "Because of the party. The scene you made. She says I embarrassed the family." The irony was delicious. Celeste had thrown away our marriage for a man who abandoned her and a job that disappeared. Now she was alone, unemployed, and estranged from her own mother. "That's unfortunate," I said. "Liam, please, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for help. We were married for 3 years. That has to count for something." "It does count for something. It counts for alimony payments once the divorce is final. But that's all." She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "You've changed." "No, I haven't. I just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not to make you happy." "This isn't you. You're not cruel." "You're right, I'm not cruel. If I were cruel, I would have exposed your affair publicly instead of giving you a chance to end it quietly. If I were cruel, I would have told Kellen's wife about the affair before he filed for divorce. If I were cruel, I would have made sure everyone knew exactly what kind of person you really are." "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I don't want anything from you anymore, Celeste. That's the point." I stood to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Wait, there's something else. Something you should know." "What?" "Kellen. He wasn't just embezzling from the company. He was using my access to HR files to steal employee information. Social security numbers, bank account information, personal data. The FBI is investigating." I sat back down. "Are you involved?" "I don't know. Maybe. He used my login credentials. If they think I was helping him—" "Were you?" "No. I had no idea what he was doing, but I can't prove that." So there it was, the final twist in Celeste's cautionary tale. She'd thrown away her marriage for a man who was not only a coward and a fraud, but potentially a federal criminal. And she might be going down with him. "You need a lawyer," I said. "I can't afford a lawyer. I don't have a job." "Then you need a public defender." "Liam, please." "No." I stood up again. "You made your choices, Celeste, all of them. The affair, the lies, the betrayal, trusting a man you barely knew with your career and your future. These are the consequences." "So that's it? You're just going to let me fall?" "I'm not letting you do anything. You jumped. I'm just not catching you." As I walked away, she called after me, "I loved you, Liam. I really did love you." I turned back one last time. "Maybe you did, but you loved yourself more." 6 months later, I was a free man. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in Judge Patricia Wong's courtroom. Celeste didn't contest any of my demands. She kept her car and her personal belongings. I kept everything else: the house, the savings accounts, the workshop, and my dignity. Celeste never faced federal charges. The FBI determined that while Kellen had used her credentials, she wasn't aware of his activities. She was, however, blacklisted from working in HR anywhere in the tech industry. Last I heard, she was working as a receptionist at a dental office and living in a studio apartment across town. Kellen Pierce was arrested in Miami 3 months after Nexus Technologies collapsed. He'd been living under a false name and trying to start a new company with stolen investor funds. He was currently awaiting trial on multiple federal charges. Monica Blackwood never apologized for the Housekeeper incident. but she did send a formal invitation to her Christmas party. I sent a formal decline. As for me, I was doing better than ever. The contracting business was booming, partly because several former Nexus Technologies employees had recommended me to their new employers. Word had gotten around about how I'd handled my divorce, professionally, quietly, and without drama. Apparently, that kind of integrity was rare enough to be noteworthy. I was also dating someone new. Her name was Sarah. She was a teacher at the local elementary school, and she thought my workshop was the coolest place in the world. She'd spent last Saturday helping me build a bookshelf for her classroom, and she'd looked genuinely happy to be covered in sawdust. But the real victory wasn't the house or the money or even the new relationship. The real victory was that I'd learned something important about myself. I didn't need to change who I was to make someone else happy. The right person would appreciate me exactly as I was, work boots, sawdust, and all. On the day the divorce was finalized, Tommy and I went to the dock to celebrate. It was the same bar where this whole story had begun, where Tommy had first confirmed my suspicions about Celeste's affair. "So what now?" Tommy asked, raising his beer in a toast. "Now I build things again," I said. "Real things, honest things, things that last." Building things that last," Tommy agreed. We clinked glasses and drank to new beginnings. Later that evening, I was in my workshop, my sanctuary, my kingdom, putting the finishing touches on a dining room table I'd been commissioned to build. It was solid oak, built to last generations, the kind of furniture that would outlive the people who bought it. As I ran my hands over the smooth wood, I thought about the difference between things that were built to last and things that only looked good on the surface. Celeste had been all surface, beautiful, polished, impressive from a distance. But there was no substance underneath, no foundation that could weather a real storm. I'd spent 3 years trying to be the kind of man she wanted, when what I should have been doing was looking for the kind of woman who wanted the man I already was. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "How's the table coming along?" I smiled and typed back, "Almost finished. Want to see it?" "On my way," she replied. 20 minutes later, Sarah knocked on the workshop door. When I opened it, she was holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing one of my old flannel shirts over her jeans. "It's beautiful," she said, examining the table. "Your client is going to love it." "Think so?" "I know so. You build things the right way. No shortcuts, no compromises." She was right. I did build things the right way, and I was finally building a life the right way too, with honesty, integrity, and people who appreciated both. As Sarah and I sat in my workshop drinking coffee and talking about everything and nothing, I realized that this was what happiness actually looked like. Not the flashy, Instagram-perfect life Celeste had wanted, but something real and solid and true. Something built to last. At exactly 11:47 p.m., I got one final text from Celeste. "I heard about your new girlfriend. I hope you're happy." I looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some conversations were over, and this was one of them. Instead, I put my arm around Sarah and pulled her closer. She smelled like vanilla and coffee and honest work, and when she smiled at me, I saw my future in her eyes. "Are you happy?" she asked, as if she'd read my mind. "Yeah," I said, "I really am." And for the first time in years, that was completely true.